Have you ever felt like you're supposed to advocate for your child, but you're not even sure where to start? Or maybe you wondered, am I doing enough? Or am I doing it the right way? In today's episode, Mandy shares how advocacy doesn't start with being an expert, it starts with using your voice, even when it feels uncomfortable. We talk about confidence, collaboration, and how small steps can lead to real change. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Autism Family Resource Podcast, a place for guidance, support, and real conversations about raising neurodivergent children. From Pure Hearts Therapy, I'm your host, Brian Keene. So, over the past few episodes, we've gotten to know Mandy Pinckley, who shared her story, her insights, and her heart for helping families and communities better understand autism. Today, we're wrapping up this series with a powerful conversation about advocacy, policy, and using your voice for change. Because whether you realize it or not, the way you speak up, show up, and support your child already is advocacy. And when parents and autistic self-advocates work together, real change starts to happen. So welcome back, Mandy.
Thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate you and your audience for listening.
All right, let's jump into this. So, Mandy, you've talked a lot about turning awareness into real action. What does that look like for you?
For me, a lot about it is not sitting around and waiting for an opportunity to fall into my lap or waiting for permission from a long process to take action. And I think one good thing to note that I've been telling myself lately is that your experience is the most valid permission you have to move forward.
Mm.
And, if there isn't a seat at the table, you pull up a chair. If there are no chairs, you stand at the table. And if you're shooed away, you stand on top of the table. And for me, right now, it's about being in the room where decisions are made because nothing about us should happen without us.
Mm. There was so much in there that I really loved. Yeah, your experience, giving yourself permission because your experience is valid enough. That's huge. And then really being on the table. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's go from your perspective. As an autistic individual, what does that advocacy kind of start to look like?
I know that for the peer-led support spaces, it's peer-led. So where's the neurodivergent support groups? I love working with NAMI, and that's the National Alliance for Mental Illness. But there's a lot of neurodivergent people who would stay away from that because of the stigmas with mental illness. And so advocates like me are working and being like, well, this is a great space, great program they have. Let's get rid of these stigmas and bring these two organizations and missions together. And so these, these voices that people have been saying are really helping make that change. The NAMI at the Florida level says the state level is willing to work on the website and help, change things.
Mm. So kind of what I'm hearing from you is like, one, you said already kind of putting yourself out there and just really telling everyone about your experiences. But two, obviously collaborating together. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Just making sure, like, why work in different silos when we can all work together?
Yeah, I really love the collaborative mindset. And, we should all be able to have our thoughts in a room and be able to, respectfully have a conversation and come to something together. And, that's what I was starting. Like there's so many leadership councils, like for example, in NAMI, and there's formal roles. But I saw that system and I said, this is going to take me years to do anything if I go through these processes. They're in there for a reason. But when there's people that need help today, I need to start talking to people. And those conversations with people across the country, made that this multi-state neurodivergent meeting happen this week. And that's why I wanted to, end the series on this week and how such a great note it happened and how we got 6 states to come together and start talking about this and the momentum moving forward. And that started all from me reaching out to NAMI Emerald Coast and asking them to start a group.
Tell me more about NAMI and kind of what you guys have discussed, kind of what happened over this past week. So give more context for anyone not familiar.
So in NAMI, Florida, I partnered with the NAMI Emerald Coast, Tallahassee, to launch the first virtual neurodivergent support group in our state. Like NAMI has they have models that they follow for their meetings, which I love. And a lot of autistic people love that routine. So I also got like support from CARD to that this was a good idea. This should happen, and having that extra backing helped make sure this got further. Like this week, we talked about what is neurodivergence, like bringing us all together because there's people like me, and then there's the executive directors. So the executives are ready to learn, but they're not as experienced in it as the lived experience. And so between the two, the executive directors and the lived experience coming together.
Mm, gotcha. So this was an opportunity for you guys and the autistic voices to really give better perspective. Almost like me, I do a podcast, right? But it's good to hear from the source as opposed to just me putting my thoughts and views on everybody, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, love that. That's good insight. So that's pretty awesome that you guys are kind of making that movement. What's kind of big picture? What's the big goal and objective that you guys are moving towards?
So I'm hoping to work with, like I said, there's these peer leadership councils. I've submitted a letter to the very heartfelt with like my facts and who I am, and saying I'd like your support, to national on these requests. And like my request was that if they could redo the autism section of their website, with professionals and like, lived experience looking it over. And it's not like I'm just making them do this out of nowhere. This meeting is willing to help with that, and card themselves personally has offered to give them that professional voice so they can have that credibility with it as well. Because right now, like obviously, like it's all well intentioned, of course, but there's like unofficial resources with official, they can give bad stigmas and stuff like that.
Okay, so it's almost you're kind of going in there and giving them advice and tips to update their websites so that's more reflective of neurodiversity, autism, and isn't problematic, right? With some of the tips or whatever they may have, the information they may have. Is that correct?
Yeah, especially like there's a bit obviously the taboo about curing autism. And I think organizations like NAMI should respectfully completely stay away from that topic. And I know obviously once these conversations are happening, they'll totally agree. But you know I know you understand where I'm coming from with that.
What was the topic? I missed that.
Is one of the resources on their website talked about curing autism, but it's just the name of that organization. They don't fully do that, but that just gives that. If a parent just reads that, that's going to be one of the first impressions of autism. Is just
Oh,
is they
appearing
read
autism.
like, oh, there
Okay.
is some type of cure. I read a resource about it when I first learned about it. Like,
Gotcha, curing autism. I was not hearing that right. So
oh,
curing au okay, gotcha, that makes sense. So, yeah, I can see, right? Because maybe there's a false thought that, "Hey, if I give my child this medicine or I give my child this, that boom, everything's will be cured."
and I think like with Florida, like there's policy that trying to advocate for, and one of them is like there's no unified definition of autism in our state. And we tried to get a bill passed that would unify the definition to be aligned with the DSM just to have something, and that didn't get passed, sadly. I know other states have that, but that's like one of the goals. But that's the same type of vibes as the website, just modernizing the language. And Dami's in a very powerful position to help our cause for autism, to get rid of that stigma, that autism and mental illness, to help clarify and solidify that. And that's why, like, I also love the term neurodiversity for the support group, for example, because you'll say NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness, is hosting an autism group. Like, no, I want you to see neurodivergent. I don't want any potential stigma.
Mm. There's a lot there, but I love it. I feel like I've learned from you just kinda what you're doing is really just collaborating with people, and this is kinda like your advocacy work you're working on now is really just talking to the right people, having the right people in the room, changing the stigma, and updating things that need to be updated, whether it's a website, whether it's, regulations. I was actually kinda surprised when you said about there's no definition, so that's huge, and really collaborating, getting people in the right room, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, like I just did that Florida Partners of Policy Making program, and that was so life changing and being able to advocate. Like I was always told, like we talked about before, that my autism was a negative thing. It could ruin my career. Yet here
Mm.
it is at the forefront of my career. And like legislators heard my story more. They didn't look down on me for my autism. I went and personally testified in front of the like the Capitol Hill, the representatives for the autism police training bill, the blue envelope program. And so that like it was really nice like that they heard that and that did get passed in our state. So I'm so proud of, our state for and everyone that did push for it.
That's great. You're already doing so much. I am curious though, like let's say someone who's kind of new to this world. This could probably sound pretty intimidating, right? Going up in front of a bunch of people talking, especially state representatives. Tell me more about how that could start, right? Like so maybe if someone is intimidated, what would you suggest?
I love that you said that because I was intimidated, all of it. I learned to do things terrified. Once you learn to do things terrified, it's easier to do. Like I'll be completely honest, I started with the county level delegation meetings. I went to 3 of those, and the first one I did, I threw up. I spoke, I turned around, and I threw it up at my
Wow.
local one. But and I beat myself up, and I was like, "You know what? I did it." And I was scared the next time I did it, "Oh, what if I throw up?" No, you just go. Everyone what I was thinking is everyone wishes that they is happy they're not me because 'cause they'd be
Mm,
embarrassed about throwing up. So it helps me calm down thinking that they're just happy they're not me.
mm,
So, that's like my advice is, well, you're probably not gonna throw up in front of everyone, so it's a great start. And I had been doing speaking, like, at those levels and going up so steadily that speaking at the state level felt no different than my local. My local one was a bigger deal to me than that one.
mm.
But it was just like, wow, that building yourself up genuinely, it does work.
Okay. So almost just starting small is kind of what I'm hearing. And then a little bit getting comfortable being uncomfortable a little bit, right? Within our own comfort zones, slowly stay moving up. But I like how you kind of like said, start the local, move up there. But I think as any public speaking, I don't know if there's anybody who just naturally was like, yeah, I'm great at this. I think you just with repetition, right? You just kind of work your way up and get more comfortable as time goes.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, how most people like, the biggest fear is public speaking because we're putting ourselves out there, and we're so afraid of being judged for our genuine self, but once you work on your own self and being okay with that, like, I'm happy with what I gave, like, respectfully, they can have their own opinions, then that's where you gotta what I mean? You build that up.
This kind of covers anybody, right? Autistic or parents, but maybe let's jump into a little bit more of the parent caregiver role from your own in your own opinion and perspective. How do you think parents could be more effective advocates, whether at the lower level or even kind of like where you are with policy change?
You don't have to walk into any space like an IEP meeting knowing everything. They definitely don't expect you to. But you do have to go in there willing to stand on your own 2 feet. And, if you don't understand something, then tell them, "We can pause this and we'll get back to you on it." Like, for example, IEP meetings, I'm pretty sure that you can request to have an additional one. So if you don't feel fully informed or prepared, go to that next one and stand on your 2 feet and be confident, "This is something I need more time on." And, it's really scary, but you're your child's voice, you're their sword and their shield. And so that's what you gotta think of when you're going to those meetings, and you have to stand on your own 2 feet. And joining communities helps or, like, other families going through it. Like, example, considering the IEPs, is workplace accommodations for adults. They say, like, "Okay, you have autism, you want a workplace accommodation, what do you want?" You have to tell them.
Mm.
Kinda go in there the same type of vibes. What type of accommodations can I ask for? And then what did they come back and meet and then
Yeah, I think a parent or individual who's looking for those accommodations and they may not know that could be like a lot, right? The process. So, what's your tip on once you get that question coming back to him and finding the right answers?
honestly, like, the internet is so powerful nowadays, is looking for trusted sources on there. There's so many, for example, IEP advocates that'd be willing to, volunteer their time to have a 15-minute call with you. There's a lot of people who are here and care in this field. Even if they're not in your state, like there's someone who'll talk to you and be like, I understand this is crazy, but and try and help for sure.
Mm.
I'm personally helping a family in another state and I'm like, I'll help you where I can.
Yes, I like what you said about the little consultation things because I didn't know that was a thing, and that's a huge resource. I'm thinking even personally, even like working with your therapist. So if you have some therapists, because they know what things look like in a school, so OT, speech, and they might know some recommendations. So I know parents or whatever can kind of reference them. Anyone on a team, right? They could probably reference that for help. And then yeah, so IEPs, so those are for school, and because we do home health at our state level, they have ISPs, or actually got changed PSPs, but person centered plans. And I think same thing, right? Calling you, finding trusted resources, ask your OTPT for those resources, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like they say, ask three people. Like it's always good to have all that additional people, the resources network.
How do you think parents and autistic individuals or neurodivergent individuals and professionals working as a team, because we're just talking about teams, right? So, how do you think we all could work together to better collaborate, whether it's shaping programs or policies?
I think it's just, coming in there with a shared goal in mind and, you know, being humble, being able to take everyone else's opinions on the same level as yours. And I mean, it's tough, but also for me, it would become a safe space where, like, if there's, and I'd be like, what you just said overwhelms me and let's talk through this. So it's more genuine than just me holding it in. Like it happened during a meeting about the resources about on the website, and I was like, this is overwhelming me. Can we come back to this later? And it helped the vibe of the group. Me being honest about that, and we later were like, oh, I'm sorry. Everyone's saying sorry to each other and stuff.
I think that resonates a lot. Just being vulnerable and having a safe space, because kind of what I've heard. I've never been in an IEP meeting because I don't work in schools, but kind of what I heard a lot of times it seems as though it'll feel like it's a parent against the school, and they're kind of like fighting each other, and it's almost like both parties seem to be defensive at times, where they're like, we can't do that, that's unreasonable, and the parents are like, no, you need to do this. So it's almost like they're just fighting as opposed to just like really meeting at the table, collaborating together, and being open and vulnerable. Like I think you said, just being the first person to be like, hey, this is overwhelming. I feel like that opens up the other person to just be vulnerable as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, for the schools, like in my opinion, like the public schools having to accommodate, children, it's sadly if they can't do something that they legally have to, it's tough luck, you have to figure it out. And so that burden and that stress does fall on them. And so they may not be able to be as vulnerable. Or like you said, respectfully, it is a defensive battle back and forth because the school is trying to save money. They're already limited resources, but that's why I said you have to stand on your own 2 feet. This is my
Mm,
child I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting for the whole school.
mm. So, okay, so kind of finding that middle ground, right? You got to have a backbone, but also be able to express yourself in an authentic way of like, hey, I need more time. I need to know this. Give me this information. Or can we, like you said earlier, can we reschedule this another IEP meeting because I didn't feel I got what we needed out of this?
Yeah, there's, tons of people who are, have the nicest, jolliest attitude, but they're very serious and get down to business. That's, basically the type of vibe he's saying.
All right, those are definitely helpful tips. Very, very good to know. I want to know, kind of changing topics a little bit. What are some current issues or policy areas that you're passionate about improving? So, kind of going forward, doing the work you're doing, what are some things that are in the radar going forward that you're like, hey, this is something I want to dive into?
It's a more of a if it's okay, a little more of a tense topic. I was talking to a representative about it. One of my passions is digital safety, and there's a lot of sexual exploitation online. And I was saying before we can even get the data on what's going on, these apps have to be legally held responsible to even provide options to report it. For example, you can't go on Discord and report sexual harassment, but yet it happens all the time to children on there.
Hmm.
So how is Discord even going to be potentially held accountable if we don't even have the numbers? And so that's something I want to work forward with, legislators, and they have the same mindset type thing. I think that's something really important going forward, especially like there's class action lawsuits being brought against Roblox and other companies being like, hey, this is serious. You need to protect the children.
Hmm. I agree with that. I think that is huge, and I'm looking forward to you hearing what comes out of that, right? And I think that's a big thing of bullying, harassment, all that stuff, and yeah, online is less regulated. Like in person, there's kind of some natural consequences, or there's people around, so people aren't usually as amped to do those things. But on the internet, it's kind of like free games sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, there are some new policies that have happened in the last few months. So I'm not 100% certain on those. What motives are they doing these products for? Like Discord is rolling out facial identification. Is that to protect people or for to get more data?
Hmm.
And so that's where I don't think that's for the children. And that's why I'd still move forward, even with their protections, to get the right thing happening.
Right. So, like, I mean, it's a business, so obviously they can do that, but it's like, okay, well, we need to be transparent about it as a business, right? And say, hey, this is for this, and not have our kids and be vulnerable and victims of that. So, okay, that's huge. That's huge. Is there anything regarding advocacy that you feel like we haven't discussed that you just want to let people know about?
I feel like one thing families often forget is you're so focused on, like I said, the sword and the shield and the voice for your child that you don't give them enough self empowerment and autonomy, and, telling them to pursue their own dreams and to have their own dreams. What do you want to do? I was so inspired watching this video that, said that this guy's dream is he wanted to live next to a coffee shop. He's like, that's a fulfillment. And I'm like, that's great. Like, and it just meant so much to me, like how much it meant to them to do that.
Mm, I love that. Sometimes it's so simple. Sometimes it'd be more. I think sometimes we even overthink it, right? So someone might be like, I want to be a dancer. And then I think a lot of our brains tend to be like, oh, well, that means they want to be professional dancer on Broadway and make millions of dollars. It's like, no, don't gotta look like that. A dancer could maybe be like once a week at a local talent show or at a do an open mic, depending on what the art. So I think that kind of made me think of a similar example of that. Before we finish up, give me some more examples of how parents can better advocate for their kids or empower their kids. How do you think parents could be better at empowering their child?
Giving them, micro decisions. Like, I mean, I know that sometimes isn't possible, but, testing the ground. Like, if you know they're going to choose option A all the time, just saying option B for the heck of it. Maybe one time they'll surprise you and choose option B. And then that leads to a whole new, fascination. Like, I know it's, there's a lot of special interests and just leaning into those, not thinking they're trends or fads. For example, Pokemon. People are like, oh, those are, trends. But there's people well into their adulthood that are very passionate about Pokemon still. And so taking every hobby they have as serious. No matter you consider it childish for their age or not. Like personally, I love stickers, but I felt it was too childish and I was genuinely unworthy to use stickers. But that's how I felt. I only recently felt better about that. I'm 24. I shouldn't be feeling that way. And so I don't want anyone else to feel that way, that they can be as childish as they want. You only live once. Do what you want.
I think we'll close off there. That's awesome. That's beautiful. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Right? We gotta. I believe in never losing your inner child, and that's what life is all about: is living our best lives. So, thanks again, Mandy.
Thank you so much.
This was such a powerful conversation with Mandy, and honestly, it's one that might feel a little overwhelming for some parents listening, because advocacy can feel big. It can feel intimidating, and sometimes it can feel like you're stepping into a world you weren't prepared for. But one thing Mandy said that really stood out is this: your experience is enough to start. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to take that first step. Whether that's asking a question in an IEP meeting, reaching out for support, or simply saying, I need more time to understand this. Another big takeaway. You're not doing this alone. There are people out there, therapists, support professionals, and other parents who truly want to help and support you along the way. So give yourself permission to grow into this, one step at a time. Just remember, you deserve support in this too. So, if you're looking for more support and resources, visit us at pureheartstherapy.com. We're here to help you feel more confident and supported along your parenting journey. Thank you for listening to the Autism Family Resource Podcast. If this episode helped you, share it with another parent or caregiver who may need it. And remember, connection, safety, and trust start with simple moments. We'll see you next time.